And welcome to another edition of Two Steps Ahead podcast. We are live here at Cascio Steakhouse. We've got a very special show, a special guest, Terry Anzaldo, joining us here today to talk a little bit about, well, we're going to start off with faith and family, and then we'll see where it goes because Terry has had a very interesting life. He has had a lot of great and exciting things happen. And so we thought it would be good to just kind of come together and kind of talk about some different things that impact you, impact me, and just have a great conversation. So thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Sonn. It's a pleasure.
So Cascio Steakhouse, we were looking for a location to do this, and the idea of doing it here because to me anyways, it seems like it's a special place for you because you bring it up a few times. You've invited me out here a few times. And so maybe you could just give us a little bit of background as to what Cascio Steakhouse means to you and the family.
Well, I grew up in what is referred to as Little Italy here in Omaha. Yeah, Omaha, Nebraska has its own Little Italy. Immigrants from Carlentini, Sicily came here back in the 1910s, 1920s. My non knew. Antonio Anzaldo moved here to the area, to the neighborhood, along with many other Sicilians. And this neighborhood was built way back when, and a contingency of Italian steakhouses were born, i.e. Caniglia's, Angie's, Piccolo Pete's down on 20th, and here, Cascio Steakhouse. And Alfie's become a very, very good friend of mine, Alfie Cascio, who took over Cascio's from his dad, Larry, who took over from his father and uncle, the legendary Joe and Al Cascio. I've been coming here since I was as tall as this table, since before the fire. We had freshman homecoming here. And since moving back from Los Angeles 8 years ago when Dad got sick, I mean, this is my happy place. I mean, this is my safe haven. This is where I'm fed. This is where I eat. This is where I enjoy to come and relax at the bar right there and turn the TV on and watch sports and just kind of just relax and have a great meal here that I have my spots out in Los Angeles, but I certainly miss my South Omaha upbringing and places like Cascio Steakhouse. I'm here Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and Saturday nights as well. My Thursdays are at the Sons of Italy right down the street, September through May, when they're open, when all those old Dagos, volunteer Italians, are down there making the sausage, making the pasta, and it's a great organization. It's a great community. The Santa Lucia Festival is here every summer. This year it's moving to June. We grew up with Santa Lucia Festival in August every single year. So all of that happens in this Little Italy area of Omaha, Nebraska. Many cities have Italian culture, Italian contingencies, Italian communities, and very passionately referred to as their Little Italy. And certainly Omaha has its Little Italy, and very proud to be from here.
Yeah, so culture, family, all, of course, extremely important, especially in the conversations we've had. And one of the things that recently for your family was a trip back home, Italy, for a very special dedication in honor of your father. Maybe you could just kind of touch on that a little bit as to what happened, and then what does it mean to you and the family?
Well, let me talk about moving to Los Angeles in 1984 and then coming back in 2018 when Dad got sick. He suffered from glioblastoma brain cancer. It took him out 2 years later. He passed away in 2019. But, I was never going to move back here, and it's no offense. I left here. I just didn't like the weather, and I wanted to spread my wings, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree with Dad being in the entertainment business back here. But my older brother is a musician and currently a Frank Sinatra impersonator, and so we grew up around entertainment. And when we went to Los Angeles, it was for the weather and to spread our wings in entertainment, representation, what have you. So when I came back here, it was, and we'll talk about, faith and God and guidance and whatnot. I believe I came back here through the guidance of God. It wasn't a decision that I had to make. I was just guided back here. When Dad got sick, I packed up the suitcase and came back here, and I've been back here ever since. In reference to your question, really, for me, I'm such a proud son, and hopefully we all are, but I'm definitely, the proud son of Sonn Eidem, a legend here in Omaha and beyond, where when we were kids, he was a promoter and brought legendary artists such as Buddy Rich, the great drummer, Maynard Ferguson, the great trumpet player, the Count Basie Orchestra with Count Basie when he was still alive. He brought the Duke Ellington Orchestra to town. He was responsible for putting the orchestra together when the likes of Elvis Presley, Frank Sinatra, Diana Ross, Barry Manilow, Tom Jones, Engelbert Humperdinck, when they would come to town, those were all the pop artists of the 70s. And those pop artists all performed live with an orchestra. Of course, they would travel with their rhythm section and their musical conductor, primarily the piano player, a drummer, a guitar player, bass guitar. But Dad provided the orchestra by way of being the president of the Omaha Musicians Union. So we went to all those shows. And then Dad later got into city government, which was something that he always, wanted to, just contribute to the city as a citizen, not as a politician. And it really didn't matter about which party. It was really all about right from wrong. And he was always a developer in terms of building houses as well. So he did a potpourri of things, and his legacy is something that I just try to, carry on the Anzaldo name by just being a good son and by, feeding back into the neighborhood, coming to Cascio's 3 days a week, going to Sons of Italy, and just trying to, just stay close-knit to the family upbringing, the culture, the Italian culture, the Sicilian culture, and, again, carrying on the Anzaldo name. And so, again, very proud son. And, Dad went on to he started out in the planning zone, the planning board, the zoning board, and that later got him into city government, where he became the president of the city council. He held that seat for like 12 years. And ultimately, when P.J. Morgan resigned to take a big job in Lincoln, Dad was voted in as the mayor of Omaha by the city council. It was not a public vote. The council voted him in, and so he was the interim mayor in 1994 for a year. And then when he ran for mayor, he found himself up against Hal Dobb, a former state legislator and state senator, and a very successful representative of the state of Nebraska in Washington, D.C., who found himself back in Omaha running for mayor. Needless to say, Hal became the mayor and created an amazing job for my dad. And as Sicilians, and if you've ever seen The Godfather, you understand the importance of the consigliere. And Hal created a job for my dad to basically be the consigliere of the mayor's office, which he would call me in California, and I'd tell him, wow, Dad, that's better than being the mayor as far as I'm concerned. I mean, the mayor's going to come to you and say, Subby, can you get the council to vote on this issue? And then the council would come to Dad and say, Subby, can you get the mayor to vote this way on this issue? And it was the best of both worlds as far as I was concerned. It was a no-lose situation. And again, every issue was important to Dad. It wasn't really about how would that benefit the upper class. It was how would it benefit the everyday citizen of the city of Omaha, which he was so proud to be a citizen of. So much so that he would never take his ambitions and his skills and his zest for the entertainment business out to Los Angeles like his kids did. He was just proud to stay here in Omaha and be a humble citizen of the city of Omaha. Back to your question, all of these things create a great man in the city of Omaha. When he passed away, we reached out to the newspaper in Carlentini, Sicily, where our ancestry is from, and they did a really nice story on my dad. And when Gene Stothert was the mayor of Omaha, there began this, Omaha has the Sister Cities Association called OSCA, Omaha Sister Cities Association, and Carlentini was to become a sister city of the city of Omaha. So Mayor Stothert and Mayor Giuseppe Steffio of Carlentini, Sicily, created a friendship, created a bond, created this work in progress of making Carlentini a sister city of Omaha. So during the Santa Lucia Festival, as mentioned at the beginning, which takes place right on 10th Street, right down the street here, I met Giuseppe Steffio 3 or 4 years ago at the Santa Lucia Festival. And he mentioned to me that my father is a legend in Carlentini, Sicily, which brought tears to our eyes. And he said, we want to do something special for your dad. To where I said, I dare you. Sindaco, which is the Sicilian word for mayor, I dare you to do something special for my dad. And the reason why I'm taking a while to answer this question is because A, I talk a lot, but B, I'm kind of teeing you up on my father's legacy here in Omaha. And when they honored him out in Carlentini, I mentioned to everyone that that in fact was the honor of his life. And the honor being that they built an outdoor amphitheater on the hillside overlooking Mount Etna, which is the well-known mountain in Sicily that's constantly, what do they call it, not erupting, but it's constantly smoking, if you will. It's an amazing sight to see. And they named the outdoor amphitheater the Sonn Eidem New Modern Amphitheater in Carlentini, Sicily. So we were there in August. My brother, Subby Jr., performed Frank Sinatra set. My Way was my dad's favorite song. My Way is, most of you watching today, your favorite song, I'm sure. What a classic from Sinatra, written by Paul Anka. And so we had Subby and an orchestra perform during the ceremony. And the mayor just honored my father like you couldn't imagine. And we took the family out there and had a great time. And Mom was unable to travel. She's going to be 90 in October. Of course, she'll outlive everybody watching this podcast today, God willing. But unable to travel, and so we had her perform the national anthem, which you so graciously edited the video for us. It's perfect. Very proud of her, very proud to be the son of Subby and Janice Anzaldo. And so that's what happened. They honored him by naming the outdoor amphitheater in Carlentini, Sicily, the Subby Anzaldo New Modern Outdoor Amphitheater. It's a great event.
Listening to you, you can really tell, just from you talking, that you are a proud son. And not only that, but the heritage and the culture and the people mean everything to you, and family. And so you kind of get a sense of me knowing you and now listening how you talk about your dad. You can really see the traits that he had instilled in you, and I would imagine your brothers too. And that's really something that is almost missing in today's society, is that fathers investing whatever they have in them to make sure that their children are growing up and then giving back to the community, living up to the family, putting family first. And I think that right there tells a lot about your father. And I never met him, but just listening to you talk to him about him and knowing you, I mean, there is really just a passing down of family values, the passing down of family virtue from one generation to the next. And I would imagine that gets you through life a lot, and probably is also the same as you would, not just with society and culture and the community and being a part of it, but I would imagine that's also probably true with faith. He probably passed that down, his beliefs and faith, to you guys as well.
100%. Dad was an altar boy at St. Peter's Catholic Church, right up there on 27th and Leavenworth, as was me and my other three brothers. I have a twin brother and two older brothers. I have a younger sister. She's the youngest. But the four boys, we were all altar boys. I will say that, as we have all grown older and our brains developed however they developed, and we've lived our lives the way that we've lived our lives, some of us have different views on religion, if you will. And I think, religion kind of ties into faith, but at the same time, for me, being raised, a South Omaha Sicilian Catholic boy, I'm very proud to have been raised that way. I'm very thankful to have been raised that way. My mother was not raised Catholic, but she was baptized at 19 years old, a Catholic, when she met and married my father, and really took on the ways of the Catholic faith and instilled that in all of us. I would say that out of the five children, I'm certainly one that has my sister as well. We've pretty much continued our faith as Catholics. My generation is more modified. We don't go to church every single Sunday or something like that. Do I have questions about my faith? Do I have questions about the miracles that I was taught? Sure, but I'm not obsessed with peeling the onion and opening up the can of worms of challenging those teachings, because those teachings is what got me to my faith in God. I do believe in Jesus Christ as the Son of God, and my faith in God is very strong. As I know we were going to get into faith here today, but even if this podcast wasn't subjected to talking about faith, that's part of my everyday storytelling about my life, about how did I end up coming back to Omaha. God guided me back here. God protected me out in Los Angeles as a dumb 22-year-old kid when I first moved out there, and I made some mistakes and some bad decisions, but through getting out of bed every day and going to work every day and attacking life every day, trying to be a good human being, trying to maximize my potential, things of that nature, came from out of how I was raised by my mom and dad. And when I left in 1984 as a 22-year-old, honestly, mom and dad weren't happy about it. They didn't want to necessarily be supportive about it because they, in one way, shape, or form, may not have felt that I was ready to do it. Subby Jr. left in 82. I left in 84. My twin brother left 3 weeks after me. Was Tony and I ready to go? Maybe yes, maybe not. Partially, they didn't want to see us go because now it was going to be 3 out of their 5 children. They weren't happy when Subby Jr. left, but he was a musician and chasing his dreams as a rock star and whatnot. So they were a little bit more supportive of that. So my goal was to put them into a situation to where they could embrace me leaving in an effort to make them proud. And that was really, I was living my life. I wanted warm weather. I was dumb and young, but I had ambition. And I really meant it when I said, I'm going to go out there and make you proud of me. And that came from their upbringing. Where did that thought come from? It was based on the way that I was raised. I truly believe that. And certainly when I first moved out there, I was, like I said, making decisions that didn't necessarily, wait a minute, I thought you were going out there to make us proud. How are you living out there for 2 months and you're living with a waitress in Reno, Nevada? I thought you were going to And that's a true story, by the way. I mean, I wasn't out there 2 months, and somehow, some way, I'm living with a waitress she was more than a waitress, a very nice person. My brother's band was playing a residency in Reno, Nevada, and I went with them and ended up meeting this waitress that the guys knew as well, and we kind of hit it off. And the next thing you knew, I was staying in her apartment, and the band came back to Los Angeles, and I stayed in Reno. And a couple of weeks after that, I realized, what am I doing? And I can't speak for her, but a heart was broken. And I came back to Los Angeles and flipped the switch, and I've been literally on, ever since. Just really hustling hard, working hard, trying to make a good living, trying to be a good person, trying to make my parents proud, try to carry on the legacy and the good namesake that is Sonn Eidem.
You mentioned something that I want to bring together. You mentioned faith in God, believing Jesus, and then religion. And a lot of people try to tie those three together as one thing. Yeah. But what you bring out a really significant point, because religion, I don't think, brings you back here to Omaha when you're talking about it. Right. Religion doesn't. Right. God does. Right. Your faith isn't in your religion. Your faith is in Jesus. And so I think there's a big difference between when people hear me, you, anybody talk about our faith, they might clump it into like, oh, it's a religion. But there's a difference, because your religious upbringing is more Catholic, Sicilian Catholic, Italian. Mine is more Lutheran, not Catholic, so opposite. I've actually been involved in a lot of different churches. But the faith is still very similar, very same. The God is still same. And just to bring in an anecdote or a story, we're not here today, I don't think, because of just coincidence. We met years ago. You went to L.A. in '84. I grew up out there. I eventually got a job in radio. I did spend some time in western Nebraska, and then I went back to KLAC, the sports talk show, and that's where we met. And now all these years later, we're here having this great conversation, talking about some serious things. And so I think that this conversation here was set up even years ago, and religion doesn't do that. That's God guiding this whole thing from way back there.
Yeah, the thing about religion is it's too bad that it's kind of become a dirty word, so to speak, but for various reasons why it has. And what I've learned is it took me being engaged to a Jewish woman. When people ask me, are you married? Somebody asked me today, TA, are you married? Well, I say I'm 0 for 1.5. 0 for 1.5? What's that half? Well, I was married and divorced, and then engaged, and we pulled the plug. So that was the half. So I'm 0 for 1.5. But that half, I was engaged to a Jewish woman. Beautiful girl, really sweetheart. And she was Jewish. And so I have a lot of Jewish friends being out in Los Angeles, even here in Omaha when we were kids. But what I learned about the Jewish faith by being engaged, because I went to Seders and Passover dinners and things of that nature for the 3 years that we were together. It was interesting, and I was engaged in her faith as much as I was engaged in my own faith, and just trying to be a good partner and just trying to learn and support one another, what have you. But what I learned is that there's only one truth. He either is the Messiah or he is not the Messiah. And all the other teachings of the Bible, in the Bible, and scriptures and whatnot, there really is only one truth. So whatever you believe is good on you, and there's no judgment coming from me when I say, as long as you believe in God. I'm not even judging you whether you believe in God or not. But for me, whatever led me to my strong faith in God, to your point, to my point, is all important. But the part of religion that is I don't know what the right word is, disappointing or contradictory, if you will, is when you're so strong in that faith and that of religion to say, this is the way it is, not the way that you practice your religion. It's this way, not this way. Well, again, as far as I'm concerned, there's only one person that knows, and that's God. And is God even a person? I mean, my faith allowed me to suggest that higher power is God. And I've been through 12-step program meetings with loved ones in my life where I've learned that, part of the 12-step program is to accept a higher power. And for me, that higher power is God. If for my friends who happen to be addicts, many of them did not believe in God, and now, thankfully, they're able to work the 12-step program by finding a higher power. Many of them call that higher power God or whatever it is. The way that I was raised is that, God is this person, this being. To me, it's an energy. God is more of an energy. It was so easy to think that heaven, if you believe in heaven, and I do, but I don't believe that it's, the clouds and we're physical beings up there and we see each other and we embrace each other. I've never read the book The Secret, but I understand the secret is what is the afterlife. And it's something that, even though we are amazing beings here on planet Earth, the afterlife is something that even our AI technology can't even imagine what it is. And I think I'm old enough now to be able to articulate my feelings about the afterlife and God today more so than I could even, my mind couldn't even think this way 20, 30, 40 years ago. So I truly feel I'm content and comfortable in those statements that I just made about God, that it must be something like that. That doesn't make me smarter than anybody else. That doesn't make me less Christian than anybody else. That's my logic tied in with my faith. Those that don't believe that there is like I said, higher power who it's so easy for me to refer to as God. I think it's silly, that's a judgmental word, to think that there isn't such thing as a higher power. Because I think that higher power goes even above and beyond anyone's belief in aliens, for example. I'm not sure how I feel about aliens. I am sure how I feel about a higher power that I am very comfortable in calling God.
Well, I think that's important too, because you mentioned 12 steps. When people have something happen, I don't really want to say crisis situations, but when things are going good, we tend to just live life and everything goes well and we just go. But when things start to become a struggle, whether it's a 12-step, whether it's health, the fall of 25 here not too long ago, my sister passed away unexpectedly. It was like out of the blue. And so those are the times when we turn and start to examine not only ourselves and what we're doing in life here, but our faith, how we're impacting others, how that gives us strength, because there are things here, like, for example, I've never been involved in 12-step or anything addiction-related, so it's kind of foreign to me. But like you mentioned, people find a higher power, they find God, they find something beyond that's going to give them the strength to fight and pull through, a belief in something. And it's always a time for us to, I think, reflect whenever something happens to us or maybe to somebody else that we know, just to reflect on our faith, reflect on who we are, reflect on what we're doing, and why are we doing it? Are we out there just for ourselves, or are we still relaying family values? Are we helping others? Are we doing whatever it is we can to make society a better place? I always like to talk about raising the standard so that we better our lives in an effort to, oh, that person can rise above, I can do it too. And so I think that's one thing that in times of crisis, just to look at yourself and see what it is that you believe, what it is you're doing, and is it all in line with what you want yourself to be. And I know when we talked, you reached out a little bit ago about some things going on in your life, and I thought maybe if you could just kind of touch on it, because one of the things that's hard for people is, especially when they're not in a position to be able to reach others, or they don't have maybe a huge base to reach out to, is they feel like they go through stuff alone. They feel like, I'm the only one that's suffering from this, whether it's an illness, whether it's something that happens in the family, whether it's an addiction, whatever it is, I'm the only one going through this. And they don't realize that there's other people out there that are going through things, have gone through things, and they can look and hear these stories and hopefully get strength and believe that, oh, if Terry can overcome something, I can overcome it. I'm not the only one going through this. What he's saying is exactly how I'm feeling. And I know that because of what he's saying, if that happened to him, it can happen to me too. So when it comes to health, I thought maybe if you wouldn't mind just sharing what you feel like about what you're going through, hopefully in an effort to not only just continue the conversation, but maybe to give people out there some hope, some strength, and maybe a belief that they too can also survive and go through and battle and fight, because you can do it too.
I have a lot to say about that. Hello, have we met? I talk a lot, so get ready for this long answer or thought process. And let's talk about mindset, which I think is really important. I mean, this glass is half full, or it's half empty. I'm an intense person. I'm a happy-go-lucky person, but I'm an intense person too. And when you see the intense side of me, you might not understand if you don't know me well enough to know that I'm a half-full person, way more than a half-empty person. So don't get it twisted on my intensity. I think mindset is very important. How does that relate to faith in God? Well, the way I look at it is the naysayers, if you will, pardon the expression, for lack of a better term, for those that just have a hard time embracing faith, God, miracles, manifestation. I do, we can talk about how God has a plan, but there's something to be said about the individual has to participate in that plan. It's not just laid out and it just happens. It's, am I making a right turn today? Am I making a left turn today? Am I getting out of bed at 8:30? Am I getting out of bed at 7:30? That dictates the rest of your day, the rest of your life, certainly. But I think that faith, by having something to hold on to, something to believe in, starting with, is there a higher power that you and I like to refer to as God, and Joe Blow can refer to as whatever they want, but there has to be some sort of, there just has to be. I don't have proof of it. I mean, I can give you examples and call it proof. I'm not going to sit here and say I know everything. I'm just saying what works for me. And so the condemnation of someone's faith is more unfair than condemning someone's lack of faith. Does that make sense? And what I mean by that is, how can you condemn somebody who gets positivity out of faith, which helps the mindset? you asked me to share about my recent health. I'll call it a health scare. I'm 64 years young, still slightly handsome. 64 years, okay? When we were kids, I mean, that was old. And it was old. I think the body, we've learned how to develop the body and take care of the body a lot more so than when we were kids and the adults didn't. Smoking, everybody was smoking, everybody was drinking in public places, on airplanes, things of that. For you kids that don't realize that that was happening, I mean, I remember smoking cigarettes on an airplane. I mean, I used to smoke cigarettes, okay? I don't anymore. I don't drink. It's about, this is iced tea. Can I have another? And so I think that when I moved to Los Angeles, I truly believed that I was doing well out there based on the guidance of God. I absolutely believed that. Came back here based on the guidance of God. I didn't flip a switch and say, So Dad's got glioblastoma brain cancer. Should I go back there? Should I not go back there? I didn't think about it. I just did it. I just reacted. And it was indefinite. Oh, so you're moving back to Omaha? No, I'm back there with this suitcase indefinitely. I didn't know how long I was coming back for. I didn't even think about it. I was needed here. And my dad needed me here. My mom needed me here. By the way, my twin brother Tony came back. My older brother Subby came back. It was just you talked about upbringing and how we were raised. We were raised as good sons by our mother and father to have the wherewithal and the thought process to just do it. We didn't even think about it. We didn't have family meetings. Well, sure, why don't you come back 1 month at a time? We all came back. Meantime, my brother Tim and my sister Gia live here as well. So all 5 of us were here when Dad was dying, basically. And we got to spend the last 2 years of his life with him. And I'm so thankful and blessed for that. And I'm thankful that I didn't even have to think about it, didn't have to flip a switch. And so I try to be healthy. I go to the doctor once a year. When you get older, people are afraid to go to the doctor. They don't want to know what maybe they can find out. They just blow it off. Whatever reasons, they don't have insurance, they feel great, why go see the doctor, whatever. I've always been an advocate of going to see my doctor once a year, minimum. And my doctor in Beverly Hills is Dr. Rob Huizinga, the former team doctor of the Oakland Raiders / Los Angeles Raiders. He wrote a book, Al Davis Got Pissed. I mean, the book was about, I just couldn't do this anymore. I couldn't put a needle in Mark Van Egen's knee and slap him on the ass and say, go get that 1-yard touchdown for us, knowing that he probably isn't going to walk 3, 4, 5 years from now. And now shout out to Rob Huizinga. He is practicing concierge, which means he gets a lot of money from not a lot of clients anymore. And so now I'm working with Dr. John Woodruff here at Think, up there on Center Street. But I'm still very close with Rob Huizinga. He's the greatest. And he was my primary for 35 years. And so routine checkup, routine physical, yearly physical with John Woodruff, who was my dad's primary. And he suggested just a normal chest x-ray as part of the routine yearly physical. And that chest x-ray was a little foggy. So he said, we don't think much of it, but why don't you go get a CT chest scan? That was a little foggier. We don't think much of it, but why don't you go get a PET scan? So went and got the PET scan. And it's so interesting. When I got the results from the PET scan, it was a Friday afternoon, and I was sitting right there. The camera's not panning, but I was sitting right there. And Alfie was sitting right here taking a nap in between lunch and dinner here at Casio's Steakhouse, 10th Street, South Omaha. Come and get yourself a steak and some pasta and enjoy it. And so I went to the restroom, and that's when I got the notification from Dr. Woodruff's office on the PET scan results, which basically suggested that I had many enlarged nodes on my lung and in the pelvic area, and it looked like I might have some cancer in my chest area. And I'm going to say it, I was sitting on the toilet in there while she was reading me the results from the PET scan, and it was so surreal. And, surreal could also, suggest that I was in a daze, and I probably was, but I started answering this question in this segment about mindset. And I'm so happy to suggest that my mindset was instant. Okay, this is what it is. I can't control this. I'm just going to deal with it one day at a time. They're telling me I have probable lymphoma cancer. How is that even possible? What have I done to my body over the years to bring this on? But my mind the wheels weren't spinning. I was just in the moment, one day at a time. And I have a 14-year-old grandson. I have an 89-year-old mother. And my mindset was immediately better me than my grandson, better me than my mother, better me than Sonn Eidem. And it was just very natural for me to feel that way. I'm not a martyr. I've accused myself of being cocky, having an ego. I think most of us do, and I probably do. I'm a confident person. I'm a happy-go-lucky person. Again, I'm not being a martyr. I'm really proud of the attitude that I had when I was... I'm not sure that I was diagnosed, but the PET scan suggested, not only from Dr. Woodruff, not only from Rob Huizinga, 3 oncologists at the Nebraska Med Center all read that PET scan to say not only probable lymphoma, but possible lung cancer, which I was advised of that 12 days later when I thought I was going in for a basic consultation on what type of biopsy, what type of procedure are we going to have with the biopsy. We're going to do thoracic down the throat or bone biopsy through the femur. So I was called to the med center. If you can get here in a half hour, we can get you consultation with the top doctors. And I watched the Nebraska Med Center treat my dad through glioblastoma brain cancer. And I swore in 2018, 2019 at that time, I put this place up against UCLA or Cedars-Sinai out in Los Angeles. I'd done the research. What an amazing place. What a great cancer facility. I'm in good hands. While a fellowship oncologist was telling me, if I were you, I would pray that it's lymphoma because it could be lung cancer. I'm like, holy shit. Wow. And when I went to that appointment, it was extra surreal because I brought my dad to the Buffett Cancer Center, 4th floor, 100 times during his brain cancer. And only, 6-7 years later, what in the F am I doing here? And I'm by myself. I had plenty of support. My mom wanted to come with, I got this. I'll take myself. It's no big deal. And so fast forward to 2 biopsies. The first biopsy, I'll tell the story that in that consultation, it's like, well, we'll probably end up going down your throat, thoracic surgery. And we'll take the camera down there. And if we don't think that we can get enough sampling through a needle, because what all the needle does to the lung, don't Sorry if I'm grossing anybody out. I had to go through it, okay? But it's a very basic procedure. It's not as brutal as it sounds. But the needle is very thin, and they're basically sucking a sample out through the needle. So it was suggested we might not be able to get a good enough sample, so we might have to pull the camera out, make an incision right here in the throat, and then put a camera down there with a snipper so we can snip pieces of the lung or pieces of those nodes off for a biopsy. And I was like, oh, can you do both of those procedures in one? Yes, we can. Interesting. The irony to that is I'm not going to know if they're going to have to make an incision here until I wake up. I wouldn't know until I wake up if that happened. So the first biopsy, I remember it was at 6:30, check in at 6:30, and probably check out at around, the procedure would be done by 10:30. And I remember waking up and staring across the recovery room at a clock. It was massive. It was this big, and it said 10:05. And I was immediately conscious of the fact, wow, that didn't take very long. It's only 10:05. And the surgeon assistant was sitting right next to me, and she goes, okay, you're awake. Good news, we didn't see any cancer. Meaning the camera would have immediately saw cancer in the chest area. Forget about the sample, which was the biopsy from the lung. There was 3 boxes, okay? Chest area, lung, / bone, okay? Well, can I see a mirror? And she hands me the mirror, and there's no incision. And I'm like, wow, this went pretty good. But realizing that we're not out of the woods because they'll want to check the bone as well. And, you know, I'm just now waking up. She's telling me this. Let me talk to the oncologist later on in the day. So he called me and he said, I basically put words into his mouth that he confirmed. Yes, so far so good, but we're not out of the woods yet. And I've had so many people praying for me, so much good energy. When I talked to Rob Huizinga out in Beverly Hills about the PET scan, and he said to me, well, lymphoma is treatable. It'll be rough. It's going to be rough, TA. I'm not going to lie to you. It's going to be rough. But it's treatable. And I said, the first thing out of my mouth was, well, I've got God on my side. To which he said, well, that's the right place to start, meaning attitude. And I'm not trying to be over the top about power of prayer. I'm just, it's just mindset and faith. It's my overall feelings. We're talking about faith. We're talking about God. We're talking about religion. I'm bringing the word mindset into this conversation, that I think it's healthy as opposed to, oh my God, the world's coming to an end, I'm going to die. And again, it wasn't about flipping a switch. I'm just very thankful, and you touched on it earlier, about, for me personally, you could be raised a certain way, but at the end of the day, we are our own person. So no matter how I was raised by my mom and dad and by the Catholic Church, that doesn't mean that I was going to continue living that life. I'm thankful that I have, in a way that works for me, that I have strong faith, and it has enabled me to have this positive attitude naturally rather than choose. Because by choosing, now you got to work at it. I honestly don't feel like I have to work at my faith. It's just been a very natural thing for me my entire life. And again, those that condemn it will say, why is the war in Iran going on right now? Why are these innocent people being killed right now? Why did a friend of the family get killed in a car accident? Why did Dad die of glioblastoma brain cancer at 86? Come on. We didn't get cheated. You know, we're all going to die. I never used to question and wonder about life and death. I do now. As we get older, I don't like it. But when Dad was dying and he, say the rosary every single night, he talked to me because I gave him his chemotherapy orally 5 nights, the first 5 nights of every month for 11 months. And he would often say, I'm scared. And I would tell him, Dad, your faith is so strong, but what I think I can help you with is that you've been saying the rosary every night of your life as long as I can remember for this moment. Not for 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 6 years ago, for this moment, for you to ask God to protect you and help you not suffer and help you not be afraid and embrace whatever the afterlife is, because at the end of the day, I don't have to like being born and dying and seeing us age and seeing the gray in your beard and seeing, I still got my natural hair color here, but there's some salt in there. And, I can't really, Dad shaved twice a day. I just shaved today for this. I hope you're happy about that, because you wouldn't have liked what it looked like the last 12 days. But there's plenty of gray right here. It's weird, man. It's weird shrinking and getting older and wrinkled up and gray, and I don't like it. And I don't like my friends dying, and I don't like my dad dying. But again, what I tried to suggest to my dad, and it helped him. I'm no Yoda by any means. I'm not the Pope. I'm not Jesus Christ. But he was able to understand what I was talking to him about, and I'm thankful that I was able to just articulate, logic to him, that it's like, Dad, you've been praying your whole life for this moment, and the overall scheme of things is that what's next for you is something we can't even imagine what it is, yet our faith tells us how amazing it is. We lost my nephew, my dad's grandson, in a tragic accident out in California, and he was on life support. And the decision was made to pull the plug on him. Pardon that expression. But a priest, the hospital provided a priest to come and give the final blessing and his final words to the family and to Jeremy Michael Anzaldo, my nephew. And this priest, he was like from Uganda. He had the accent and the whole bit. And he said, I know you guys are hurting right now, but I want you to know life is a gift, but so is death, because where Mikey is going, he will be in awe. And that's something that's going to stick with me for the rest of my life. He will be in awe. And when my dad died, I texted my family saying, he's in awe. And he died in our living room. And when he was, we had him on all kinds of morphine the last 40 hours of his life. So he was unconscious. And he was in the living room, and we were just kind of watching him. And the next thing you knew, on that Wednesday morning, 9 a.m., he opened his eyes. Now, granted, I'm sure that was biological, okay? And I might out my twin brother a little bit here, whose faith is a little different than mine, let's just say. But it was awesome to hear him kind of cheering on my dad. You know the secret. You are crossing over right now. Go. And we were crying. And like I said, I'm sure his eyes opening were, part of his body shutting down biologically. but it sure seemed like he was in awe, and his physical being, his eyes couldn't take it. It was just so amazing. And these are stories of faith that, it's just one small little, it's not a miracle, it's not anything like that, but it's just something that just continues to instill my faith. So, back to my health, after they felt that they got enough sampling out of my lung when they took the camera down there, and that came back benign. So the way that I looked at it was, we have 2 boxes checked. The chest area is inflammation. We knew we had that. Hello, 64 years of life, 3 days a week at Cascio Steakhouse, okay? A little inflammation ain't going to kill you. It's not cancer, but it sure put the fear of God in and scared us with our health. And God bless the staff at the Nebraska Med Center. They're just doing their job. They're just trying to get to the bottom of it. They're looking under every single rock. They're not intentionally giving me bad information. They're not bad at their job for giving me information that, as it turns out, I don't have cancer, because then we did the bone biopsy, and that also came back benign. And I've got a really good buddy out in Los Angeles who's a pediatrician. Shout out Rodney Gabriel, Rodney texted me and said, TA, I've seen the power of prayer humble many a physician. What a profound statement that is from a doctor, from a very successful doctor. I've seen the power of prayer humble many a physician. Again, did God make sure I didn't have cancer? Did all those prayers change having cancer to not having cancer? I don't necessarily look at it that way from a miraculous point of view, but it sure feels good. It sure helped me get through it. Having so many people say the power of prayer, we're praying for you. The phrase thoughts and prayers has gotten a bad rap lately. Why? It's a wonderful sentiment. And I've had people say to me all the time, I'll see somebody who, I'm a basketball referee, somebody's got a hurt wrist and they can't play, or they got a hurt ankle and they can't play. And I'll tell them, I'm going to say a prayer for you. And I've been challenged by people in my life saying, when are you going to say a prayer for that person? Why would you say that? Well, the fact that the sentiment is the prayer. It's not bullshit. It's not hype. I'm not full of shit. I really mean it when I say it. And prayer can be in that moment. I pray for you every day, the fact that you lost your sister. Now, do I sit down and say, and Lord, please look over Sonn Eidem and his family, who unfortunately lost their sister for no reason whatsoever, without any knowledge, without any sickness or anything? No. But when I say that to you, it's, all the people and things that we need to pray for is embodied in my faith. And so, where are we now? Well, I just saw a rheumatologist last week, and they did extensive blood labs, and everything's coming back healthy. And so, well, are these doctors quacks? No. You might ask. Don't use that word. I'm very thankful to the people in the medical field. And every appointment I went to for my dad and for myself, I always, I'm not the nicest guy on the planet, but I always make sure that when I'm at the hospital to thank those people, from the nurse who's drawn my blood to the top oncologist at the med center. Thank you for doing what you do. It is a blessing to teachers, Same thing. Thank you for doing what you do. You don't get paid enough. Why would you do this? But you do it, and you take care of our kids, and you try to help our kids learn, and in the medical field, you try to make us well. Thank you for what you do. And it's very, very genuine. And again, to me, the theme of what we're talking about is, it's faith, but for me, it's really about mindset. It's a mindset, and it's understanding what that means. It's not choosing, because I think if everybody really thought about choosing, am I going to be good or am I going to be bad? It's really about kind of understanding, because I'm not perfect. I have my days. Well, that guy's an asshole. Believe me, I have plenty of days where people think I'm an asshole, and I feel like I'm misunderstood. But I could be impatient and come across the wrong way. But I think mindset is really important, to the extent of, for me, it's very natural to have that positive mindset about things, even when I'm angry. I'm pretty good at looking in the mirror at myself about, geez, how could I have handled that better? And continue to do it the same way, because we're not perfect. But I like to acknowledge faults in myself, sometimes way too much with other people. That's what gets me into trouble. That's why I come across as an asshole, because sometimes I might react to a certain person a certain way that I shouldn't be reacting that way to. But just talking about it right now is an acknowledgement to understanding our imperfections, and understanding that, when I had my conversation with my mother about what they told me they thought the PET scan looked like, this woman she says her devotions every day. She says the rosary every day. She's a Reformed Catholic for 70 years. Tremendous faith in God. But I try to help her understand how faith works with my own logic, with what we've been talking about. I prayed to God. He didn't listen to my prayers. And I'm like, no. Yeah, but it's unfair. I'm 90, you're 64. Why you? Why not me? I can't lose you. And I'm like, no. So what we need to do is pray to God for your strength. Not pray that Dad's glioblastoma is going to go away. Not pray that Terry's results are not, the PET scan doesn't end up being anything. Oh, he didn't listen to my prayers. I just think that we have to channel our faith in a realistic manner, not in everything as a miracle. And, our faith is built on miracles in the Bible, and that's why I'm not too interested in dissecting the Immaculate Conception or Adam and Eve. I mean, did those stories really happen? On the other hand, did we really evolve from ape? It's all pretty miraculous to me. No matter how we became these physical beings or not, it's all pretty miraculous one way or the other. Hence, the higher power, who guys like you and I like to call God, and feel very comfortable with it.
I think what you've been saying is extremely powerful. A lot of thoughts going through my mind that when you talk about it, but the prayer, obviously, I think is huge. And your father praying every day, something comes to mind, and I don't know where I heard it from. It might have been a sermon somewhere or someone preaching or something, but for such a time as this. So his prayer every day led him probably to that time, like you said, that time, such as a time as this. Or in your case, your mom praying, well, why is it not me? And instead of you, I'm older, you're younger, I can't lose you. Well, your prayer is preparing you for certain things, just like I was able to respond to your mom. But I know it's a sad situation with your father passing, but for some reason, when you were talking about the eyes and the awe, that would be just a sad situation, but it just sounded like it was almost like a perfect ending, you know, like I see something as that is unbelievable. And to be able to have that moment, and I don't know, maybe it is biological, but maybe it isn't, I don't know. It's just, but that's just like a great picture to kind of see about an end of life, is that you're kind of out of it. And then as you're passing over, you kind of wake up maybe, and you're just kind of like in awe, and then you just go.
Exactly.
But it's just amazing.
Well, and today we're just storytelling, right? And these are true stories, and they're not necessarily miracles. They're just a reflection of what we're talking about, faith. And I love telling that story. And I love, as a storyteller, I think I'm a good storyteller because I don't leave anything out. I try not to embellish. Maybe I have a certain sense of charm in my storytelling that comes across as embellishing, or the tone, or the jargon, or my style of storytelling, my personality, what have you. But I'm very fair in my storytelling too when I suggest maybe it was biological. It probably was biological, but I'm not over accentuating the fact that he opened up his eyes because he was crossing over. It's just profound in that moment, like you were saying just now. I mean, that's all part of it. And I think having these kind of conversations are important. I think that being robotic to your faith and how you were raised and how the world has evolved, and you can talk about what was going on in America when the Constitution was written, what was going on when the Old Testament and the New Testament was written, and by the time it was written, those stories were already old. And I can tell you that 1 + 1 = 2, and you go tell somebody and somebody and somebody, and as it goes around the horn to 112 people, now 1 + 1 coming back to me, who started that conversation, is EM squared times 0.1. It all changes, but it's all in some way, shape, or form relevant to the conversation, if that makes any sense at all.
Well, one of the things that when you're sharing, it kind of opened up some new perspective, just from how, like the awe thing. Never really thought about awness. I mean, you kind of learn what you learn through your religion, and that's how you adopt your faith. But you think of the awness of that moment, or the prayer humbling doctors, and if they can humble doctors, it could humble me, it could humble you, or just the fact, like you said, I'm going to pray for you. The thing I think people miss out on is the sentiment that you're taking a moment to realize that this person is going through something, and you recognize that, and you want to wish them well. Just like you would send them maybe a get well card or something, like we used to do in the day. You're just wishing them, well as well. You're taking a moment to recognize the situation that they're in, and you recognize that for them. And so whether it's a daily prayer, or whether it's that recognition, or whether it's the thought, because I think a lot of people, the rosary might be a specific prayer with the beads, but you can also have just prayerful thoughts, and like you said, you're hurt, I'm going to pray for you. Prayerful thoughts can also, I think, make an impact. And I think it's all that comes together. And it is. The doctor's right. It's absolutely humbling.
And every time I say that to a person, and it's not like I'm a priest and every day I'm doing this, but it's often where it makes that person feel good. Always. Not, oh, this guy's full of shit, or like, there is no God, or, say a prayer. What good is that going to... I never get that reaction. And what's wrong if it makes me feel good to do that too? What's wrong with that? And it's just an extension or the reality and honesty of what is in fact my faith. And it makes me feel good to live my life that way and to try and touch people that way, even if I don't know what their religious background is or isn't, or their line of faith is or isn't. But I got a good buddy of mine who went through rehab and never believed in God whatsoever, and now he does, and now he's sober. And people say the 12-step program doesn't work. Well, it's not a miracle drug, it's not a cure, but it's a thought process. And how profound is it to say, well, the 12-step program doesn't work because you're not working the 12-step program. If you do everything that the 12-step program tells you to do, then it's going to work for you. Now, granted, you still got to lay off whatever that poison is that has turned you into an addict, and it is a disease. It's not just mental. It's a mental decision to take cocaine, to take heroin, to do whatever. You're making that decision. But everybody's chemical makeup in the brain is different. And, I dated a girl who, I swear to God, it didn't matter how much she drank. It just mattered that one drop is all it took. One drop of wine, and she was a completely different person. But I only had one drink. It doesn't matter. It doesn't. I'm not a drunk. I'm not an alcoholic. But just literally one drop of red wine, and this person became a different person. And it is a disease, and it's that's unfortunate, because not everybody has it. Certain people can drink 3 days a week and really tie one on and be functional. The other 4 days a week can even be functional while they're under the influence, and others ruin their lives. But along with faith is the extension of having a faithful life is having a healthful life, a healthy life. And as we get older, these are all the things that I think about. How's my faith? How's my health? What am I eating? What should I not be eating? So how should I be behaving, not behaving? What about working out? Things of that nature.
I think one of the things, too, not only is faith there for us in our hard times, but I think that our faith, I think God rewards us, or maybe blesses us is a better word, with things that we would like to do. For example, one of the things I think that was a goal, a dream that you wanted to do was to ref a state basketball game at Pinnacle Bank Arena, and you got the opportunity to do that. So in my opinion, in my feeling, is that I think that's like a blessing, So if we're living our life according to what we believe, that God can also bless us with the desires that we want to be able to do like that. What was it like being there at Pinnacle Bank? Because that's pretty awesome.
Well, as I do, I'll give you the long answer. I am so honored to have had the career that I've had in the record business, AKA the entertainment business, my career. I befriended Randy Austin, who was the son of Mo Austin, who built Warner Brothers Records, who built Reprise Records with Frank Sinatra. Mo was a legend. His other son, Michael Austin, was his partner over at Warner Brothers. Randy helped get me in at RCA Records. But I saw Michael at a UCLA basketball game with his dad before his dad passed away. And I said, Michael, I was trying to get into the NBA as a basketball official, and I was trying to get into the record business at the same time. It was a two-horse race. Which field am I going to get into? And your brother got me hired at RCA Records. And I often wonder was that the best thing that ever happened to me? Because here we are at a UCLA game, and I'd love nothing more to be refereeing this game. And even though that's college basketball, I really believed that I was going to make it into the NBA. I mean, this is in the 1980s. And, of course, this conversation with Michael was in the early 2000 aughts. Is that what I'd say? Early 2000s? Like maybe 2000. I take that back. It was like around 2015. And I'm in Los Angeles, so basketball officiating was out of my life and had been for years. And then 3 years later, I'm back here in Omaha, taking care of my dad. Still operating TA Entertainment as a consultant to independent artists, independent record companies, independent productions, whatnot. And I called my best friend, John Higgins. Shout out John Higgins, who's probably the most influential sports official ever to come out of the state of Nebraska, my college roommate. And when we were in college together, I told him that, John, I think, his brother Tim got drafted by the Golden State Warriors, also out of Kearney State College, which is today called the University of Nebraska at Kearney, UNK. And I said, John, I don't think you're going to end up getting drafted by the Golden State Warriors like your brother. I've been officiating since 16 years old. We're now 21 years old. I think you'd be a great basketball official. I dropped out of college, moved to Los Angeles. John got into officiating. After 3 national championship games, 10 Final Fours, he's now the supervisor of officials for 6 different conferences and about to be the supervisor of officials for the new Pac-12 league. And when I came back here to take care of Dad, I called John up and I said, I want to referee some basketball. Basically, adult men's basketball. A lot of guys that look like you, Sonn, as opposed to these college kids and high school kids. A lot of guys that look like you and me, but they're like in their 30s and they got beer bellies and they think they belong in the NBA. Those guys. Those guys that are going to scream and yell at me the whole night just because I got stripes on. I got news for you. I'm a grown man. You're a grown man. You're going to respect me, or this whistle doesn't mean that I'm going to give you a technical foul. This means I'm just not going to take your shit. So John gives me the phone number of Brent Robinson, and Brent was overseeing OSA, Omaha Sports Association, Omaha Sports Academy, basically youth basketball program in Omaha. And I go to a meeting, and they're talking about third grade girls basketball for $22 a game. And I'm like, I have no interest in wanting to do third grade girls basketball. I'd like to get a workout in and do adult men's basketball. Yeah, they'll yell at me. I'll yell back at them. It'll be a nice 3 hours. I'll make $75, whatever. I'll get a workout in. He said, stick with Brent. Well, Brent also had the contract with the Metro to assign high school basketball, along with Al Monaco. I didn't even know 3-person. Now, granted, I started at 16 years old in 1978. And fast forward, and I ran basketball leagues out in Los Angeles and was, heavily involved in basketball, even as a record executive. But I wasn't refereeing anymore or running basketball leagues. I still loved the game. I was still in touch with John every day. Where are you at tonight? Oh, you're at Syracuse. Where are you at tonight? Oh, you're at Purdue. When are you going to start coming out to the West Coast? So he'd start coming out to UCLA and USC games and all that. That was great. And I'd pick up him and his crew at the Renaissance or the Marriott down by LAX, and I'd drive the crew into Pauley Pavilion, and I'd sit in on their pre-games, and I'd hang out with Bill Walton in the Boweries of Pauley Pavilion. What a time, man. And then I'd take him to Dan Tana's restaurant afterwards and have a great time. So still very much in the mindset of officiating, still very much would watch games focusing on the officials as opposed to just the players. Like most fans, they only focus on the officials when that was traveling. No, it wasn't. Yes, it was. Okay. Fans, biased fans. And so I stuck with Brent and Al and learned three-person officiating and started working my way up. And even though John and I and another gentleman by the name of Brian O'Neill, who went to Holy Name High School, John went to Cathedral, I went to Omaha Paul VI on 16th and Center. The three of us were the Omaha Catholic schools in the Centennial Conference that still exists today. That includes Omaha Fremont Bergen, Wahoo Newman, Columbus Scotus, David City Aquinas. I think Concordia is a new school here that's in that conference, maybe Boys Town. And so I lost my train of thought, but Brian's an official back here as well, so I met Brian. I'm like, I know you. We used to play against each other in high school. And so I worked my way up a little bit here and there and started doing freshman games and JV games, and little by little I started to get varsity assignments. And then it was like 3 years ago that I set a goal. And a lot of people were thinking, okay, John's your buddy. When are you going to do Division I games? And the answer to that question is never. There are older officials who've been doing it for 35 years or so, but that's a young person's world. It just is what it is. I'm capable, but so are so many others. And there's diversity, I'll say it. I mean, there's women need to have jobs in officiating. Minorities need to have positions in officiating. And so there's that. There's, I wouldn't call it politics. I mean, I think in every business, what's your camaraderie like with the gatekeeper, the person that's hiring? It's not favoritism. There's many people that are qualified, but if you're hiring, who's your guys and who's not your guys? Who do you get along with? Who do you not even know? Well, you're going to hire the people that you get along with, that you've known for years. You only got so many slots. So for me, and in basketball officiating, every official's trajectory is different. If you're a college student and you show up at the gym doing youth basketball on Saturday mornings hungover, and your shirt's untucked and you got a tin whistle, we know you're just there for your college beer money. If you show up and you're looking good and you got the Fox 40 that you paid for, and you got it in the mail and your shirt's tucked in and all that, and you're looking good and you're groomed and all that, and you've got some talent and you're using proper mechanics and you're running up and down the floor and all that, then your trajectory could be, hey, this guy could really, or gal can really be a good official one day. So my trajectory was that of, I never really thought about college basketball, but in saying that, I was able to get hired and staffed on the Great Plains Athletic Conference, which is the GPAC, which is a very good conference in the NAIA, which is below Division III, Division II, Division I. So I had a very successful season in the GPAC, as well as the ICCAC, which is the Iowa Community College Athletic Conference. So it's junior college, mostly through Iowa, but there's a couple of schools in South Dakota and Nebraska. And I was mentioning that me and John and Brian were in a Class B, but the class of basketball in Omaha was the Metro Conference. It's where Mike McGee went to school. I saw him win 2 rings for the Lakers. Before I moved to Los Angeles, I went to all of his high school games. Shout out Paul Whitey Castor, who mentored both me and John Higgins. And he refereed all those big games back in the day. And I just had it in my blood that was I ever going to get a second shot at the adrenaline that comes with, the next best thing of being a player during a live sporting event is being an official. After that, you're just some dumb fan. No offense, dumb fans. We're all fans. But being in the action as a sports official, which really requires an art, it's an art form. Not anybody can do it, even though everybody in the stands think that they can do it and know the rules and all that. Truth of the matter is, us three officials on a basketball court have a worse view of the play than the fan had. And, we're not perfect. Your son missed how many free throws during that game? I think it's okay if I miss one call. Mind you, I maintain to this day, I've been doing it since I'm 16. I've never missed a call in my entire career. Show me the film. So, 3 years ago, I set a goal. My trajectory is not going to be to go to the Final Four. My trajectory will not have me working a Creighton game or even a UNO game or even a Kearney State game. Maybe. But I've worked Hastings. I worked Bellevue. Those were on the bucket list. I got to work both of those schools this year. That was exciting. But I set a goal to get to the state tournament 3 seasons ago. And the first year, which was last year, I got to work a consolation third-place girls basketball game at a brand-new Standing Bear High School. At the state tournament, they do a good job. We have Class A, Class B, C1, C2, D1, D2. Those C1, C2, D1, D2s are in small towns. So when they come to Lincoln for the state tournament, they load up on hotels and they leave their communities for crime probably goes up in all those communities during the state tournament because everybody leaves those little towns and they go to Lincoln. So the state tournament does a great job of putting together consolation games for C1, C2, D1, D2. So last year I got to work a third place game at Standing Bear High School. It wasn't at Bob Devaney Sports Center. It wasn't at Pinnacle Bank Arena. The NSAA does an amazing job putting on state tournament events, especially basketball. It's really fun. It's 4 straight days, back-to-back weeks, girls first week, boys second week. So it's been a goal of mine to get to the state tournament, and primarily Pinnacle Bank Arena. This year, I was assigned a first-round C1 girls game. C1 was loaded this year. All these schools were really, really, really good. And I got to work Bob Devaney Sports Center. That's where the Nebraska volleyball team plays. #1 program in the country. Shout out Nebraska volleyball. And the environment was off the hook. I mean, it was so fun, so exciting. We have not talked about my time in the entertainment business so much as to I ran Maverick Records for Madonna and Freddie DeMann, was involved with artists like the Wu-Tang Clan and Alanis Morissette and the Deftones and Prodigy. Had a great run in the record business. Produced the Dallas Reunion special with Larry Hagman and that entire cast and the whole Who Shot JR. Google it, you young kids watching. People of our generation remember Who Shot JR, which was the highest viewed broadcast television event of all time until MASH had their final episode. Something like 90 million viewers. I mean, it's like Super Bowl numbers. And so really, really proud of the career that I've had in the entertainment business as an extension to my father's career, who was more of a local promoter here in Omaha. But I have to tell you, and I told you it was a long answer, but putting a bow on the answer, I've had a lot of great experiences in my life from a little kid all the way to today. And today was last month when I got to work the state tournament game at the Bob Devaney Sports Center in Lincoln, Nebraska. It was a top 10 highlight of my life. I had so much fun. There was a controversial play at the end. Should we have called a foul? Should we not have called a foul? The play went viral. What I like about it is that the debate was, is this a foul? Is it not a foul? And, the haters were like, that's terrible. How could they not call a foul? And the more basketball minds were more like, well, I could see why they didn't call the foul, or yes, that's a foul because here's what happened. And so it was a fun little debate, and I I was getting calls from people saying, "Hey, are you okay?" And I'm like, I'm fine. We did a great job. Our supervisors came in after the game and said, "Great job, you guys. Really solid performance by you guys as a crew." So I was happy. I mean, but for the first time in my officiating career, I see what my buddies who do Division I basketball and the NBA are scrutinized on social media every night, just based on the fact that they're working every night. Well, there's Kip Kissinger again. I mean, there's only 7 days in a week, but he's worked 8 nights this week. You know, we love what we do. We love doing it. I say it in my pre-games on the court with the captains all the time. Hey, you see these stripes? It's a misnomer. We are not the enemy. And then my partners will make a joke. What does misnomer mean? Why is the sports official looked at as the enemy? And why are you 2 teams playing? Why are you playing? You're here to have fun, right? That's why I'm here. I'm here because it's fun. When the ball goes up, it's all business, okay? But our job is to manage the game. Your job is to play the game. If we have to get overly involved in the game, that means you guys aren't playing the game properly. I mean, yeah, we can call out of bounds and this and that, but if we got to keep calling fouls the whole game, and that's because you guys just aren't playing the game properly. So you guys do your job, we'll do our job. Fans cheer, coaches coach, players play, officials officiate. Don't you forget that.
You mentioned earlier which path, basketball or entertainment.
If I may.
And, yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that was kind of fascinating about that was either way, you probably could have gone on and reached the pinnacle of either, because you reached the pinnacle in entertainment. But I'm kind of glad you went the entertainment route, because one of the greatest stories that I have from my radio career was I worked with, Steve Hartman, Michael Thompson, the former Laker champion, and Vic the Brick Jacobs in a sports talk show in Los Angeles. And Steve Hartman was kind of the radio guy. Michael Thompson was a former player, and then Vic was just Vic's Vic.
Shout out Vic the Brick Jacobs and his beloved bride, Yuko Sakamoto.
And just Google search Vic the Brick Jacobs, and you'll understand.
He's an anomaly, and there's only one of him. Yeah. He's the greatest.
And Steve always name drop. Well, every time he went to Taft High School, and I guess he went to school with Jane Weedland. I don't know if you remember this.
I do.
And so he kept talking about his 50th birthday coming up and name-dropping this, name-dropping that, Jane Weedland this and that. And I went to Taft High School, and Jane Weedland, Taft High School. And there was always, whenever Taft High School came up. So I think it was you might have called originally hearing this and said, hey, I know somebody, and we could probably make this happen, to have Jane call up on his 50th birthday and kind of surprise him, because he was talking about her like a lot. And sure enough, pulled it off. And we kind of played the guess who the guest is, mystery guest, whatever. And that was like one of the greatest things that we were able to pull off as far as a surprise guest for him, that he actually really appreciated, because he had no idea it was happening. It was all something that just kind of blew up without his even knowledge. Like, I never even told him anything about it. And all of a sudden, there she was on the phone on his 50th birthday.
Yeah, and I think what you are saying, and I'll also add to that, is that, Steve's been around so many of the greats, certainly in sports, and he's somebody I really, really look up to as a broadcaster, because for somebody being in the music business, obviously I make a living, and my job in the music business was getting artists' records on the radio, so contemporary music programming. But I'm a P1 sports listener. I listen to sports talk 24 hours a day when I'm in the car. I mean, of course, I bounce around to Sirius XM and all their channels. Hits One, shout out Alex Tier. And I listen to, all the local stations here in Omaha, the iHearts, the NRGs. But I listen to sports talk here in town. And Steve was just, and he's on Sunday afternoons here in town, through syndication. I don't know if you know that. Shout out 1620 The Zone. So he's on, through, I don't know if it's through Westwood One or what, on the weekends. But the thing about Steve, like I said, he's the number one stat guy you'll never stump him on stats or trivia or anything like that. He's just brilliant at it. And he's interviewed the likes of the greatest athletes of all time, especially in Los Angeles, going back to the great Dodgers and the great Lakers and all of them. But I think to your point, how could somebody like that be starstruck? And especially with somebody who he went to high school with. But all these years later, I don't know if we identified Jane as one of the members of the Go-Go's. Jane Weedland was in the Go-Go's. And he would talk about her extensively in this story, how he went to high school with her. And it was almost like to the point of, the gag was, yeah, right, yeah, sure, you know her, and that type of thing. And so I bought into the storyline, and I think that this is also, if I may, an extension of how my father was. Just getting a kick out of helping people out or doing something nice for people. It's somewhat opportunistic, admittedly. I like calling up Jane Weedland and saying, can you call Steve Hartman up on the air and wish him a happy birthday? He claims you guys went to high school together. Let's out him on that, or you remember him, you don't remember him. That'll be a bit on the segment when you call him. And I just love doing stuff like that. And, that brings us full circle to even us being together here today. Again, I met you in Los Angeles on Los Angeles Sports Radio. And through Facebook, I found out you were here in Omaha, Nebraska. And I'm here in Omaha, Nebraska. And how does this work? What are we both doing here? And, again, I'm not bitter about having to be back here. I got back into officiating. I got to accomplish a feeling that I thought would never happen in my life. Again, going back to, I didn't finish that Michael Austin part of the story, where I said to Michael, I've had a great career in the music business. You and your father have had a great career in the music business, but I really wonder if I missed my moment by not having my basketball career officiating. And he said, no, fate has worked out for you. And I enjoyed hearing that from him. I thought the joke would be, yeah, our business is so effed up, of course it beats selling shoes, I'll be honest with you. It comes with pressures like any other corporate job, right? But the idea that I've got to, experience it again by coming back here is just more confirmation of my faith and God's guidance, and how I could have come back here and been so bitter, especially on these cold days, which is one of the reasons why I left, if not the main reason why I left. I could have went to New York, but I chose L.A. My brother went to L.A. My cousins went to L.A. The weather's in L.A. And I'm just thankful that, I have my days, but for the most part, I'm not bitter about being back here. I embrace God's guidance. I just embrace it. Never in a million years could I've ever predicted of being back here in my 60s, in my 50s. I could never, I would have fought it. That's not going to happen. And so, going through this health scare, I embraced two mantras: better me than you, one day at a time. And it's worked for me. And it's not a facade. It's not fake. It's just very, very natural. And I'm blessed that and thankful that so far so good. When I was preparing to go through chemotherapy, but I wasn't getting too far ahead of myself. It's just like one day at a time. Let's see what happens. They could be wrong, because in that consultation at the med center, is it possible I don't have cancer? And somebody that I really, really, really respect said to me, Theoretically, yes. Realistically, no. And if I were you, I'd pray for lymphoma rather than lung cancer. It's like that's what it was. And I looked as healthy 6 weeks ago as I do now. I mean, I look healthy, right? I seem healthy, right? I've never felt better in my life. I don't even know how that's possible. At 20 years old, I wouldn't have known to think how great I felt then compared to now. I mean, I've never felt better. I can run up and down the floor on the basketball court with 30-year-olds, no problem. Like, no problem. We're doing 5 or 7 miles a night on the court. I might have wandered off somewhere in the scheme of this conversation. I was talking about something. We'll come back to it.
Well, the one thing that you probably don't know, or maybe don't realize, that I think after having this conversation makes sense, but sums up the type of person you are. When the radio show ended, as we knew it, the Loose Cannons with Steve Hartman, Michael Thompson, Vic the Brick Jacobs, the Lakers left and went to another station, so obviously Michael Thompson was going to be gone. They left to go to ESPN. Mm-hmm. The big bloodbath took place where Clear Channel at the time, which is now iHeartMedia, fired everybody. I mean, they just did one of their now infamous firings. And I was one that lost my job. And it was the next day. I don't remember what I was doing, but the phone rings. And I answer it, and it's you. And you call me. And you're like, hey, man, I found out, I heard what happened. You know, I just want to make sure you're okay. Checking in. If there's anything I could do for you, let me know. You know, we'll be in touch. But, you know, I know it's a rough time right now. But, you know, you reached out just because you wanted to find out if I was okay. Because, in essence, the job, my dream job, was now over, at least at the time, because that's what I'd worked for. And you were like one of maybe two that reached out to find out if I was okay with the show ending. And I always remember that. I mean, that's almost 20 years ago that took place. And I remember the call vividly. And so now, after hearing this conversation about who your dad was, about who your family is, about who you are, not only was that a good gesture back then, but it wasn't necessarily a gesture. It was just who you are. You know, that's just who you are. Here's somebody that I know, we did business together, we worked together, I care about. I'm going to call and just find out how he is in this bad situation. And so what at the time was, you know, was awesome, but from my perspective was like, hey, this is a really cool guy reaching out. I appreciate it. It wasn't a cool guy reaching out. It was you being who you are and doing what you do. And I'll always remember that. And so so that I appreciate and thank you for that all these years later. But now I see why you are the way you are, because it comes down from your family, your father, your mother, your family, and it just becomes who you are, whether it's a player, oh, you're hurt, I'll send a prayer for you. Hey, you lost your job, I'm going to reach out. Hey, Steve's birthday, let's get somebody on and let's make his day. Yeah. You know, I mean, that's who you are, and I appreciate that, and that's why I think that having this conversation about the stuff that we're talking about is huge, because it just reflects in this me-first narcissistic society that we can be us, we can be who we are, we can chase our dreams, chase our passion, but along the way, we can be there for others. We can help others and be a part of others as well.
And if I may add to that, not to, again, pat myself on the back, thank you for that, and you're welcome. I just think it wasn't a decision, but I think that's what real relationships are about. Anybody can be close with somebody when they're sitting in the chair, and then when they're not, it's like, well, who's going to fill that slot, and I'll just deal with that person. I'm a believer in, you know, you can't use the word relationship if it's not real. We have a relationship. Now, in fairness, it's not like we were like the best friends. We wouldn't go hang out. I mean, we were business associates, so to speak. But I really, you know, it's easy to be, you know, pardon the language, it's easy to be a star fucker and care about Michael Thompson and Steve Hartman and even Vic the Brick. But the producer Well, we're just scheduling through you. I want to hang with Steve Hartman. As far as I'm concerned, you're every bit as valuable as a talent, as an associate, and as, you know, someone that I have a relationship with. And I've always been a believer in, you know, a business relationship is a business relationship. Why can't it go any further if you're just being yourselves? You know what I mean? I mean, I've always said that when I went out to LA, I can shuck and jive with the best of them. But being raised in South Omaha, I sleep better at night out in Los Angeles just being a straight shooter, being black and white with somebody, being who I am instead of faking the funk, and just being very genuine. And, you know, who I am is I try to, you know, these thoughts, these things that we've talked about, these subjects that we talked about, it's easier for me for it to be genuine than to have to think about it. It's like very natural. And I think to your point, you know, me reaching out to you is definitely something that I got from my parents, you know, just being compassionate. You know, I saw it more in the workplace from my dad on how he dealt with people. We'd sit in this restaurant many, many times, and people would walk up to him, "Hey, subby, you know, nice to see you, and how's the family," and all that. And he'd be nice to everybody, and then they'd leave the table, and I'd say, "Dad, who is that?" And half the time he'd say, "I don't know." And he wasn't being fake to those people. Some of those people he'd met many times, but just didn't necessarily retain them, you know, by their name or what have you. And that happens to me sometimes. But, you know, I always do that when a close colleague of mine loses their job or something. I think that that's a very vulnerable time for that person. And it's just my way of, you know, making them feel like, "Hey, dude, you're just as important to me not sitting in that chair as you were when you were sitting in that chair. How can I help in any way?" And I got that from my dad. My dad was always trying to connect dots and introduce people and make connections. And "You'd be really good at this. I know a guy. You need to meet that guy." And when my twin brother and I created Good Guy Entertainment, which was a takeoff on being a coil good guy, as well as Puff Daddy back in the day, when Puff Daddy had Bad Boy Entertainment, we were going to create our company called Good Guy Entertainment. So it was a takeoff on Bad Boy, but also a wink at Coil Good Guy here in Omaha off of the mighty 1290 coil. And we specialized in connecting dots. We didn't really manage a lot of artists. We had relationships with a lot of pop culture icons, and we would introduce them to the talent bookers of Dancing with the Stars or Celebrity Apprentice. Yes, we worked on that show. And it's just something that we have a passion for. Caring about people, introducing people, connecting dots, making things happen. And I guess that's what producers do, and that's what I kind of do in my career. I produce things in entertainment, and very artist-friendly and people-friendly. Try to be anyway. I'm not everybody's best friend, but I sure try to be in a way that's, you know, helpful to people. So thanks for acknowledging that.
Just wondering if there's anything else. I know we're probably getting up to Cassio's opening, and they're going to probably want to get our area ready for people coming in. And I know we could carry this conversation on probably a lot longer.
Yep.
But and so maybe we have to do it again. We have to definitely do it again.
I'd look forward to that.
But anything else for this time around you just want to include that maybe we missed out on that you just like to share?
How about if we talk about how Omaha, what are you guys doing in Omaha? And some of the people that I talked to while I was going through my health scare, still going through it, but I mean, it's, so far so good. I mean, by now I could be in chemotherapy treatments, and that's not happening, thank God. But I had people calling me saying, TA, you're in Oklahoma. And I'd say Omaha.
Yeah.
Oklahoma's a state. Omaha's a city. Really?
Yeah.
It's that hard to retain where I'm at. I'm in Omaha. Now, granted, the entire state has 2 million people, but Omaha has half of those people. 1 million people are here. So it's amazing that the state of Nebraska, size-wise, is, what, 2/3 the size of the state of California?
Yeah, probably.
Maybe half the size, or probably more than half the size of California, but it's a large state. And there's only 2 million people here. But Omaha is 1 million people. And you're being treated by a hospital, and like I'm not in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. It's not a barn. The hospital that I'm being treated at is not a barn. And by the way, I don't mean to call you stuck up, but Mr. Stuffy, Mr. Major City, Mr. New York, Mr. Los Angeles, Mr. Houston, if you, God forbid, get stricken with some sort of cancer, I'm going to be screaming until the cows come home to your loved ones to bring them to Omaha to the Nebraska Med Center. We're all from somewhere, and Omaha's a great place, man. When I talk about I was never coming back, I had to get out of here, I'm not a fan of cold weather. But the people, the food, the culture, it's a melting pot. I grew up around Mexicans. I grew up around Italians. I grew up around, today we call them properly Native Americans. When we were kids, we called them Indians. And they embraced that. That's what they were called in South Omaha. A melting pot of people. I grew up around Jewish kids. And never had any concept of racism whatsoever as a young kid in this town in the middle of America. And it's a great town. And, you had what you thought was your dream job, and then it went away, and you've got a family, and you had to think about, how am I going to take care of this family? What's the next best move for us? So on and so forth. You had said you had a job in western Nebraska for a time, so you were going back and forth from California and then western Nebraska, and then all of a sudden you see this opening, or you remember Nebraska, and you were intrigued by Omaha, and you came here. So it's just a total irony, coincidence that we're both back here together, and you're not even from here, I am, and that, our lives have crossed paths full circle. And when I was going through this little routine yearly physical, and all of a sudden it started getting a little scary, I had bumped into one of your podcasts. Of course, we had seen each other many times back here, but I bumped into one of your podcasts and started understanding that you're talking a lot about faith. And what's interesting is that my Mamma Mia said to me, when everything came back benign and negative, this was God's way of challenging your faith. And I understand that thought process, but I don't, not that my mom's wrong, because I think that there's something profound about that thought, but I'm not one to say, why would God stricken me with cancer? This is bullshit. Screw God. I mean, that's just not me. My faith, maybe the answer has got stronger, but it really didn't. It's been solid. And where I'm at now and what we're talking about right now is just a testament to that. Has it gotten stronger? Yes. Do I think it's a miracle that all these geniuses said I had cancer and I actually don't? No, it just is. It just is. And I think that, that's why, again, for me, #mindset. The mindset was always one day at a time. Was always, okay, what do you got for me now? Probable lymphoma, possible lung cancer. Okay, let's go do the biopsy. Biopsy, no chest cancer, no lung cancer, no bone cancer. Okay, what's next? Probably another PET scan 3-6 months down the road. Well, we want to turn you on to a rheumatologist. I'm told Dr. Canella, another Sicilian lady by way of Grand Island. Her ancestry is from Corleone, Sicily. You might have heard that name before. Okay, that's where Vito Corleone is from, Corleone, Sicily. Shout out The Godfather. If you haven't seen it, stop watching this and go watch that right now. You're missing the greatest cinema of all time. Rheumatologist who took, like I said, extensive blood tests, and it's all coming back very healthy. The body is pretty amazing. These enlarged nodes grew as a defense mechanism against some sort of disease that my body thought was being generated inside my body. Did you hear what I just said? The body is just amazing. The brain is amazing. These enlarged nodes on my lung grew as a defense mechanism against a potential disease in my body. So we're just trying to get to the bottom of, is there a disease? What is that disease? Why did these nodes grow? And are they about to go away? Mama Mia and I had influenza A during Christmas. The PET scan was in January. Could be as simple as that. Was all of this a waste of time? Hell no. I'm an advocate of early diagnosis of, my dad got diagnosed with prostate cancer by accident. He had that Mediterranean blood. His platelets crashed. He went to the hospital. He was in his 50s. The doctor said, "Subby, have you ever been tested for prostate?" He said, "No, never." They found prostate cancer. Had they not, back then, in the 90s, prostate, who we can treat and cure, could have killed him. So early detection for women, for men, go see your doctor, man. Go see your doctor. And, try and have a positive outlook, good, bad, or indifferent. And que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be.
Exactly.
The scheme of things, whether you have faith or no faith, we are a pimple on the ass of the universe, the life as we know it. Something, if you don't believe in the afterlife, that's cool. I don't necessarily believe in heaven and hell. I believe that soul moves on. It's a spirit. I believe that God is an energy, not this cloudy being up in the heavens. It's easy to refer to a place called heaven. That's cool. That's fine. At the end of the day, are they all physical beings above us? Ghostly physical beings? Probably not. Okay, but it's an energy, and that's what helps me get through the day, one day at a time. And being back here in Omaha, being the proud son of Sonn Eidem and carrying on that legacy, and something as simple as being able to have a great meal at Cascio Steakhouse 3 days a week. Shout out to Alfie Cascio.
Well, Terry, we appreciate the time. Thank you for setting this up, coming here, because this is a pretty cool spot. Definitely great food. And can't thank Cashio's enough for allowing us to utilize their lounge area to do this. And again, thank you for sharing, and appreciate it. And yeah, let's do it again sometime, because I think we got a lot more we could share, a lot more we could talk about, a lot more about you that we could delve into as far as the entertainment aspect, because there'll be a lot of things I'd be curious about as well. So let's do it again.
I look forward to it, Sonn. Good to see you, buddy.
All right, man. I'm going to give you a cheers.
Love you, buddy. A real pleasure. Thanks a lot.
And for those of you listening, check out our website, radiowarp.com. That's radio, W-A-R-P. Click on the Two Steps Ahead podcast logo, and there's a lot of information there about the show. Take your passion, make it happen. Let yourself be great. I'm Sonn Eidem, TA, here at Cashio's, and we'll see you down the road.